Hi everyone, welcome back to Love Your Lemons. My name is Abby, I'm a physiotherapist and I've been experiencing anxiety and depression on and off since I was about 17. And today what I wanted to share with you was what happens to your brain when you're in an anxious state, and also how closely linked are anxiety and depression. Being a physio, I love learning how the human body works. And when I first started to experience anxiety, I wanted to know what was happening inside my body. I wanted to know how my brain responded to anxiety, and if at a physiological level, would my brain change when it had been subjected to anxiety for a certain period of time. So I began to do some research, and what I found, most of this research is undertaken through a functional MRI machine. This machine detects blood flow and neural activity in your brain, so it can identify what parts of the brain you are using. So participants in these kinds of studies would undertake a psychological test whilst in the functional MRI machine. So this gives us an amazing ability to look inside someone's brain whilst they're being subjected to anxiety. The consensus I found in the research is that there is a change in connectivity between your prefrontal cortex, your PFC, and the amygdala. Your PFC is involved in your higher order thinking. It helps to regulate emotions, thoughts, and actions. It's also involved in your decision making by monitoring errors, and it provides us with insight. Your amygdala is also involved in this system of regulating our emotions. There is still much to understand about the amygdala's function in this system. However, what we do know is that the amygdala is involved in greenlighting the fear and threat response, also known as the fight or flight system, which is widely associated with our understanding of anxiety. The discrepancy I find in the research, though, is that some studies suggest that there is an increase in the connectivity between your PFC and amygdala, while other studies suggest that there is a decrease in connectivity between these two parts of your brain. However, the bottom line is that there is a difference in connectivity between the amygdala and the PFC in people with anxiety. This change in connectivity will ultimately affect our ability to make decisions and regulate emotions. Neurophysiology is a complicated subject, and I am certainly not an expert in it, but simply knowing that much about it helps me to understand that I struggle with making decisions and how my emotions can sometimes feel so far away from the situation I'm in. They just sometimes don't match up. With this knowledge, I found I was better able to separate myself from the anxious thoughts and emotions. I started to create little affirmations in my head, and I would say them over and over again when I started to feel like my anxiety was just spiraling out of control. One of my favorites that I used to say was something along the lines of, "Oh, this is just my amygdala having a little hissy fit. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that over there in one corner. I'm just going to let it do its thing until it calms down." And what I found was I could go on with my day while this loud, banging anxiety was just happening in one corner of my mind, instead of it spreading to all areas of my functioning and just ruining my day. I also found that being able to separate myself from my anxious thoughts and emotions, that I was less tired and it really didn't tax my body as much if I just let it spiral out of control and take over. Another phenomenon I began to experience as I continued along my anxiety journey was the intimate link between anxiety and depression. There were times when I felt more depressed than anxious, and sometimes it was just a flick of a switch between the two. I started to realize a pattern that was developing. When my anxiety was starting to get out of control, and for a couple of days I'd just be spiraling, I wouldn't be able to reel it back in, there would come a point where my brain just couldn't take it anymore. It would flick from an anxious state to a severely depressed state. I would feel really tired, sluggish, really hungry. And I found that the depression would hit me first thing in the morning as soon as I opened my eyes. The anxiety would be gone, but what would replace it was depression. Something that really resonated with me and solidified this pattern for me was a quote I read from Sarah Wilson's book, First We Make the Beast Beautiful. She said, "For me, I'm mostly anxious. Depression kicks in as an exhausted response when my anxiety goes too far." I remember reading that sentence and just thinking, yes, me too. It's not just me. Reading Sarah's book brought me to a journal article I hadn't come across before by John Tiller, where he discusses the statistics that reflects a connection between anxiety and depression. He mentions that 90% of people with anxiety have depression, while 85% of people with depression have anxiety. David Nutt is a leading researcher in this field, and he also asked if anxiety and depression are individual entities or two sides of the same coin. For me, they are absolutely two sides of the same coin. I felt it, I've experienced it. I'd love to hear your stories about whether anxiety and depression has been coupled in your mental health journey. Please leave a comment below. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up. As a disclaimer, it's important to understand and take into consideration the quality of the evidence. Sometimes papers don't release all of their statistics, and I've done my best to analyze good quality research, but this field is still growing. The evidence isn't always perfect. So what I think we can gather, if we can gather an understanding of neurophysiology and utilize that to help separate us from our anxiety, I think it's a great tool. The other thing to take into consideration is our brains may be changing in response to our anxiety and depression, but it does not always mean that this is the cause of our anxiety and depression. I think understanding what is happening in your body is a great mindset tool, and that is what I use it for. If you're liking the Love Your Lemons channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if there are any particular topics you want to discuss on Love Your Lemons, please leave a comment below. And also, just an FYI, the next video will be posted on Friday the 6th of September instead of the Monday. And that's just because I'm going to Bali. I am so excited. So hang out for that video on Friday the 6th of September. Have a great week, everyone. I'll see you soon.